We all have something to share. No share with Dr. Dave.
Hello, and welcome to the Now Share with Dr. Dave podcast. Hey, I'm Dr. Dave Cornelius, aka Dr. Dave, and I'm your host. In today's conversation, I am going to be talking to someone that I've worked with at two different companies. Cesar Flores actually hired me at one of the company while I was pursuing my doctorate. He has deep experience and knowledge about applying agility to help organizations. And so I'm just going to bring him in, and we're just going to have a great conversation about agility and, unleashing the power of your business origin story. So let's bring Cesar in. Hello, Cesar. What's up?
What's going on, Dr. Dave? Good to be with you today.
Always, always. I heard you have a song for us, so you're going to sing for us today. No?
I'm not going to sing it, but I do want to talk about a song.
Tell me.
Yeah, I'm not particularly religious, but there's this song by Yolanda Adams called
love her.
Yeah, Be Blessed.
Yes.
Yeah, and to me, it just represents being at peace with your life journey. Life's a journey. It's rarely a straightforward path. It's a winding road with unexpected detours and ebb and flows. But when you're at peace with your journey, we unlock our best selves. And to me, that's what it's all about. This inner peace with your life journey is a blessing. Yes. And you should surround yourselves with people that are at peace with your journey in your life. So.
Hey, without a doubt, man, I kicked off my day today with about a 3.5 mile hike into a canyon, a bunch of cactuses and mountains and wildlife. And, that helps me find my peace, right, to kick off my day. So to get ready to talk to you, I had to do all that. I just have to let you know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, why don't you just do a 30-second or more pitch about yourself, let people know who you are, and then we'll just get in and start having this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in this for over 2 decades, almost 25 years of experience, driving growth across different industries, from the financial sector, insurance, and SaaS organizations. I'm deeply passionate about aligning people with an organization's higher calling. When individuals connect with a higher purpose, it brings out their best. As an executive coach, I've helped leaders define their organization's core reason for being, going beyond their mission statement to find that deeper why that fuels them. I have led major organization transformations, launched successful product lines, and cultivated high-performance cultures across. But at the heart of it all, I am driven by a deep commitment in helping and serving individuals and organizations to their full potential, creating a lasting positive impact, both at the individual level and at the business level. At the end of the day, it's all about the people.
I couldn't agree more, and we definitely align on that. So, hey, let's just jump in and talk about the meaning of better in business. I like Carol. Her name is Carol Larson, or Carl Lawson, and she has this quote called "Handle hard better." I like that saying, and it has gone viral in terms of our ability to be able to deal with tough situations and get things to get on the right track. So when we really talking about what makes a business better, are we talking about speed, efficiency, something deeper? I mean, what does better really means in this context?
Yeah, and that's literally the billion-dollar questions for a lot of organizations, right? But I think first that the first order of business that leaders at the executive level need to do is really define what better is for them, right? And you brought up a couple of examples. Is it speed? What is it? And if the executive leadership team is not aligned on that definition of better, that is the first point where they become misaligned. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a personal care services business like a hairstylists, barbers, or massage therapists that really rely on their hands and interpersonal skills with clients. And let's say, suppose you have in the same company a strong executive technology leader. That technology leader's definition of better could be the best technology, but it may depart from the core value of those interpersonal skills. Over time, technology initiatives may drive a wedge in your business rather than pursuing those interpersonal skills that closely align with that core of your business. So this is the first undertaking that leaders must do. Leaders must align on what better is. And generally, I would define better is in three ways. One, the first way is alignment to core values that drives the business, the efficiency of value delivery, and how efficient the business is at adjusting to change. Businesses need to continue to create sustained value that aligns with those organizational core reasons for being. This will make their business better.
Yeah, I mean, making sure everyone is aligned with core values is super important, and being able to communicate what that really means, and also just using some really great practices like organizational change management to make sure that you're communicating and you're building a community of individuals who really want to lean into those core values and bring that forward, right? That's really important. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things that you and I are involved in this whole agile space, and we've been involved in this agile space for a long time.
Long time.
Long time. Yeah. I mean, I've been involved, it's kind of like, yeah, I don't even want to talk about that. But anyway, so if we look at beyond the hype of agile and think about why transformation failed, and I like to reframe that, right? Because I said, the reframing is the challenge of people failing to deliver value using agile practices, as opposed to agile, which agile is really just a framework, right? And so it doesn't do anything by itself without humans interacting and leveraging it. So you and I talked about an article from Forbes.com from 2023. And it's like a perfect transformation plan won't make you agile. And we're looking at different reasons why people fail with their implementation, fail in their journey of transformation, leveraging agility. So let's dig into that. Let's dive into why you think organization missed the mark, or, can they avoid becoming part of the status quo or the statistic of failing with their agility transformation, or even transformation in general?
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. Agile is a mindset, right?
Yeah,
it's how people and teams collaborate, connect with customers, get feedback, and deliver value. What's really required is a long-term commitment, and some companies think it's a quick fix, right? Agile is not a destination; it's a journey, right? And not a one-time project. It requires an iterative approach. You're adjusting to what you're seeing, inspecting and adapting to it. But it also requires knowledgeable staff across the board, including your leadership. It's very important that they understand what Agile is and what it's not. And also what's helpful is to have a trusted partner that's been there before, and you can rely on their experience. But Agile alone isn't enough to succeed in business. You need that alignment to core objectives that's required, so teams understand what they're aligning to. Agile methods is great at providing a structure for purpose of achieving business goals at every level. But companies don't always maintain that needed commitment for continuous alignment with those teams, from the highest level to down to the team level. And even though teams are delivering every 2 weeks, if that alignment doesn't continue, teams are very good at finding things that they think they need to work on. And it's important for leadership to maintain that alignment. Solid alignment along with that agile structure with continuous checks ensures that you're going to have value delivery across your transformation.
Yeah, and there's a practice that called lean portfolio management that really helps with that. Right. And so that is in addition to doing your traditional Scrum, Kanban, or Scrumban, or even SAFe, Scale Agile framework, of using any of those different what I call structures to enable the organization to deliver value. With LPM, you could start to really talk about outcomes and value, and start to make sure that the leadership, along with everyone else, is aligned on the same objectives, right? So, I mean, I completely agree that if we don't have that, it's really hard for people to get the real value, and it's a long-term commitment. It's like anything else, right? Like losing weight, you ain't gonna happen in 3 months. You're gonna lose some weight, but it's in turn of it being sustainable, right? We have to put the work in, and it takes time.
And leadership has to be involved, right?
Yeah.
They cannot just drop off the car to the mechanic and have that be the model, right? They need to stay engaged with that scalability that you just referred to.
Yeah.
And you and I started with Agile before there was, we were experimenting with scalability before SAFe, right?
Yeah.
And it continues, but leadership cannot disengage, and it's extremely important that they stay aligned and that commitment to those teams stay, because that is what is going to drive those core business measures to make that business better.
Yeah, and we have to hold, if we're the trusted partner, one of the things that we have to do is to ensure that, like using things like objective and key result, OKRs, really truly have evidence-based business outcomes that really matters to those leaders. Oftentimes what happens sometimes when we're doing these transformation, we're talking at the execution level, and as opposed to at the outcome level. So we're at the output level as opposed to at the outcome level, which is really what people are really interested in, right? How is this going to help me achieve X or Y or Z, and by how much, right?
Yeah.
And by when? And if
That's
we
exactly right.
Yeah, if we could get there, that's what's going to, really allow transformation to be sustainable, scalable, and really be resilient. Yeah. So, buzzwords versus business results, right? Agility and performance, in terms of like really understanding their impact. And we're kind of foreshadowing that in our prior conversation. How do we get people to, talk the talk? And especially when they don't want to do the walk, wants to do the work, we get them involved to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what businesses need to understand, and leaders across the board, is that they can have both.
Yeah,
they can both have agility and the performance that they need. But as we were talking about, alignment to core business goals is the key. It's about starts with defining the measures of success that you will track. If a company has alignment to core measures, it will achieve those goals. But how does a company know they're winning, right? They need to understand how they're keeping score across the board at every layer of the organization. And this, through inspect and adapt, that the agile structure provides, they can do that, right? If something is not working correctly, they can adjust it. Once we define the results to look for and measure against them on a regular basis, we turn those buzzwords into measurable, powerful concepts that move the company forward. And that's why leadership also needs to stay engaged, as we were referring to. They need to have checks and balances across each layer of the organization and understand that agility produces that performance that they're looking for.
Yeah, they have to have skin in the game. They have to have some level of ownership, in the journey. And oftentimes, they're off doing something else. And I'm going like, hey, this is a fiduciary responsibility. You're responsible for making sure that the company achieve these outcomes. So why are you not here? Why are you not leaning in? And oftentimes we have to ask those questions and really begin to hold their feet to the fire as well, right? They're equally as accountable in all of this as we are when we're working in an organization trying to deliver some value that are really outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Things that are going to benefit the customers and benefit the organization. Is important that we hold their feet to the fire. Oftentimes, the thing that you and I run into is that people think about agility as just faster delivery. And then there's more to it than that, right? And you and I understand that. What happens when speed becomes the goal rather than the byproduct of really creating value?
Yeah, I think this is a misconception, and I think it's kind of, unfortunately, the way that sometimes agile is sold to an organization. But what we're really talking about is speed to value, right?
Yeah.
Speed to market, not. This is often misunderstood. And again, it starts with, how this is sold and marketed, but we're talking about not speed of output, but rather than speed of value delivery.
Yeah.
When you focus only on speed of output, you lose the benefit of sustainable value, right? You start tracking widgets out the door rather than the value that those are delivering. There's also a risk of missing out on benefits of failing fast. That's the other component to it. But as agilists, we must not fall into the trap of equating with just output. We must stand and correct that notion that speed is just about output. And the other thing that I'll add to that is also about failing fast. It's not failing fast for the sake of failing, but it's failing fast to learn and get closer to value. This is something that as practitioners, we need to continuously educate and share that knowledge of what that means. Speed to value versus speed to output. That's the difference. And there's a lot to it than that, but it's when you're talking about, you mentioned about when a project is or something is going to be delivered, and leadership, especially as you get higher in the leadership ranks, they talk about just dates and they think about it in terms of projects because they have that old school mentality, and they want it to be faster. But what really they're asking for is, how can I deliver value faster? Not more, but value faster. And if organization cannot define what value is, they need to do that first and foremost to educate the teams themselves.
Yeah, and not every organization needs faster, right? Because the when you think of agility, you may be thinking of quality, which is an essential aspect of it. Not just speed to market, but quality, engagement. Other factors that are really super important. Delighting your customers, right? I mean, so oftentimes you're right. We sell this agility thing to people as, oh, we can do things faster, but the reality of it is, what we need to do is really define their needs and our customer needs. There's this, Clayton Christensen did this whole thing about jobs to be done, from a product management perspective. So that's what we need to really define. If we understand jobs to be done, then we could understand their pains and how our solutions, the outcomes that we're going to produce will be, something that provide a gain to our customer, provide a gain to the organization. So it's also a lot of that stuff that's really important for the organization as well.
Yeah, you said something really key there, and that is understanding your customers, right? And the speed that they're looking for. That is extremely important. I generally use an example like if you're in the tax business and the tax software, right?
Yep.
You probably don't want a lot of releases on April 14th, right? Like, so if you're in the United States, you know what that means.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things that we need to be able to understand is the customer base and what they're looking for and the frequency of change that they expect, but also the value that they expect and when they expect it. So those are critical things, and I just wanted to add to that. That was a key point. I love that you said that.
Thanks, brother. So Simon Sinek, Start with Why. Talking about your business origin story and how you define success. Oftentimes, and I created this thing called your visioning journey map, and the reason I created it was really to help organization to define where are you going and what does success look like. Right, and where are you going and why are you going there? Why is this important to you? So I like the fact that we're gonna really lean into that a little bit. That before thinking about using a framework like business agility, we want to know why the business exists. So how do we explore that whole understanding of mission and objectives to help shape some of the strategic initiative that agility could help bring to market in a way that we could look at it. You said fail fast. I like to use to say learn fast, right? Learn fast, right, is another way of saying fail fast, because that's the traditional language that we've been using for a very long time. So how does this help us when we understand the why of our core business? Like, Coach What Matters, why do you exist?
Yeah, it's exactly right. And this goes to the heart of what we do at Coach What Matters, right? Why are you in business?
Yeah.
We take for granted that our executive leadership team understands that they know why they exist. Especially if a new leader comes on board to a company, right? And also as the business goes through trials and tribulations, through their journey. You start to lose that why, like any of us on a personal level. You start to do that. So at Coach What Matters, this is what we walk our businesses through. Why are you in business? What is the problem you aim to solve? How will you know that you're winning as a business? What is your strategy? And how are you going to keep score? Which for us translates into those core measures that you're using to demonstrate to not only to your employees, but to the marketplace that you are winning. Every method and strategy you adopt, including Agile, as you mentioned, needs a measurement to show how it will assist or lift those core business measures. So if you're adopting Agile as your methods, what you need to do is tie that agility to how it's going to lift and make your business better. Right. So a lot of businesses have a vision and mission statement, but they don't establish these specific measures and methods to track progress against their core business proposition. This must be done in order to evaluate any major initiative, right? We're talking about agility today, but it could be any major initiative. Leaders must see a path to delivering on their mission and vision through, like in our example that we're using, through Agile. If not, they will become the first to abandon that transformation, right? So they need to stay engaged, but they also need to see the light. They need to be able to see that path of how Agile is going to improve their core business measures. But a lot of businesses, if you ask them, do you have a vision statement? Do you have a mission statement? Yeah, they do. But they don't have a board like you do, Dr. Dave. So, those are the things that they need to kind of build out for themselves, but also it requires alignment, right? It's not just the CEO saying this is why we're in business, but the technology leader, the HR leader, the finance leader, everybody across the board sings that same song, right? That they're in it for this, and here's how we're going to measure it, and here's how we know we're winning. And at Coach What Matters, that's what we try to do for businesses across the board.
No, that's critical. That's critical to make sure there's alignment, that your vision itself is aligned with the strategies that you're executing for that year or year 2 or year 3, right? So it's that, the effort for the Agile transformation journey per se it's also there's a strategy for that, and that we could clearly articulate, exactly what do you want to achieve, by having a series of strategic goals that you could measure and obtain. So you're definitely spot on about that, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So, but truly, Agile is a tool, right? It's a framework. It's not a silver bullet. And a lot of people oftentimes thinking that, hey, this is a silver bullet and it's going to fix and cure all. Nothing fixes and cure all of anything. Not even like, the favorite meal that comes from our family, it may fix something for that moment in time. But what we're really talking about is like, it's a tool. It's a tool that we could use to help us solve a lot of things that we're trying to achieve in an incremental way, right? As opposed to waiting 18 months. And you and I have been on engagements that we're working 18 months and we still aren't done yet. And if we're just done smaller incremental releases and cycle, we would have realized, failures really early. That's to learn fast, right?
That's right.
So let's dig into that about leveraging Agile as a tool and not a silver bullet.
Yeah. And I think this is also another misconception, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned you and I have been around a long time, and, how many times have we heard in the hallways, well, we have Agile now, it's going to fix it all.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's a lot of misconception around that. And while Agile can bring up and surfaces problems that your organization has, just because it surfaces those problems doesn't mean that it's going to fix them. Right. It is up to the leaders to be upfront with those and really take a commanding lead around those issues and problems that you see. Agility is a mindset. It's methods like Scrum to execute the strategy. It develops good habits, and with good coaching, Agile teams become great at innovating and executing on that strategy. They get, with feedback from customers, they can adjust and learn. And Agile is set up to be able to do that, to deliver. But companies, again, need to align those to those core values, right? And if those core values are misaligned, that also starts to it won't fix that, right? So you need to understand what value means to the business as well as your customers. And the mission and the strategy should be aligned to that. Without this solid core definition and understanding across the layers of leadership, with mission and vision and alignment to that strategy, Agile won't be the answer. But guess what? No other framework will be the answer either, right? You need to address those in order to align your organization to understand how it's impacting those core measures. So that's the misconception that Agile will fix everything that's wrong with the business. It won't. What it'll do, though, is it will service those problems, but it'll develop great habits for teams. And with good coaching, like I said, those Agile teams can become great at executing what you put in front of them.
Yeah. Well, the saying that we're in the Agile space, that Agile doesn't fix everything, but it will reveal all of the shortcomings that you do have within the organization. And
Right.
That's the opportunity that the organization have to implement good habits and good practices, to allow them to move forward. So, it's like, hey, the emperor has no clothes, but Agile helps us just, point that out really quickly, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
right. So how do you measure the success of Agile initiatives, right? I mean, what tools do you use? What metrics specifically would you want to put in place to, talk about the impact of agility for the organization?
Yeah, and I think this is probably the most important part of this event here, because I'm going to throw an example. I want to tie this together for our audience. You have to measure it in two ways, right? First is measuring the agility practice itself, right? Am I doing what the Agile principles are telling me to do, and all those things? But the second thing you should measure is the impact of Agile on the business, on those business core measures that we were talking about. So I'm going to use an example on how you do that together. But again, this is just an example and it's generic. You would need to apply it. But the same way that I'm going to tie this together for you, it should be done across the board. So measuring agility and measuring the Agile business impact on your core measures. So let's start with measuring, for example, teams. We talked about it. Teams get feedback. They get feedback from customers. You can measure the frequency and quality of that customer feedback, and more importantly, how you're reacting to that feedback. So you can do that at the agility team level of how your Agile practice is doing. Well, how would you translate that into the business itself? At the business itself, for example, in the insurance business, they measure customer satisfaction, NPS, right? So this directly translates to that feedback that you're getting at the agility level. So at the business measure, you can measure that customer satisfaction metric. Is it improving? How are we doing with that? You could use both measures to determine that business impact that we're looking for. So again, one at the agility practice level, and then customer satisfaction down at the business performance level.
Yeah, and I'd like to add something to that in terms of like categorizing the type of metrics, right? So some metrics are lagging indicators, right? After that's happened, then we measure it. But what's really important to help the organization to be able to learn fast and pivot or persevere is leading indicators, right? How is agility really showing up in your business practices such that you could see that what you're delivering, the value, right, the outcomes that you're delivering for your customers is beginning to provide these indicators that, okay, yeah, we're going in the right direction. And so I just wanted to add that in as part of the measurement, because a lot of times we spend a lot of energy doing just lagging indicators, and we've missed the opportunity for leading indicators that would give us lots of insights.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because we cannot be afraid to pivot. Yeah. And those leading indicators tell you that a lot about that, especially when you have a passionate executive around a product, right? And the passions tend to overtake the evidence at times. So you need to be able to understand how you're going to score the game before you start the game. And then once you see those leading indicators that tell you that, it's at that point, it just becomes acknowledgement of the pivot, not a point of argument or discussion.
Yeah. And then, we always have this huge disconnect in terms of dealing with misalignment between, Agile teams and business objectives. And I would even go further and said it's just misalignment between business objectives and teams, whether they're Agile teams or not, right? And how do we start to make sure that there is greater alignment between what the organization is trying to achieve in terms of their objectives for that year, right? And the teams who are actually doing the work to build stuff and make sure that they could satisfy, their customers, because there's a gap there. And I know that there's several efforts that has been made to ensure from an business agility practice perspective to handle that. So why don't we dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, this is a like you stated, there's many reasons, but in my experience, there's a common reason, right? The top layer of leadership at the C-suite does not communicate all the way down to the team level. So you rely on this translation layers of leadership in the middle, and a lot gets lost. A lot of information and intention gets lost during that translation. So that's a common theme that happens. So the common thing is, well, what do you do about that? So leaders aren't really asking and documenting the ways that they will be measured and how at the different levels of the organization that's going to take place. So it starts with executive leadership on down to define this at every step of the way. When agility practices, and this is kind of like one of the things or the pitfalls that happens, right? Agility practices tend to focus on teams, not necessarily on that executive level, right? So with the focus on teams and its practices, teams become kind of their own silo, kind of their own pod within this company, and that cannot be allowed to happen. As I mentioned before, teams naturally become their own system for finding work and solving problems that they see. But are those the right problems that the C-suite wants you to be solving? Teams don't always get that clear message from their leadership, and they're missing that. They need to, sometimes they go their own way even. So leaders need to have intention. They need to intentionally make that connection. And the company has to determine through their practices, through their daily practices from the C-suite on down, to maintain that connection, checkpoints, accountability points throughout each layer. And that should be documented, communicated, and transparent to everybody in the organization. This way that alignment happens naturally through its practices, rather than a bulldozer coming through and telling you this is what you must do.
Yeah. And, I like to think of, and it just came to mind that something that I wrote, in one of my books about the foggy top, the messy middle, which is the fluid middle, or the flexible bottom, right? So teams are the flexible bottom. The messy middle or the fluid middle is really the management level, and then the foggy top is where you have your CX suite. One of the practices that I like to use, and this is, you don't have to use all of the Scale Agile framework to allow this to happen. Big room planning has been around for a very long time, right? I mean, we've been doing this for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, where we bring a group of people together and
Right.
start aligning, our objectives to make sure that everyone understands, what we're trying to achieve. And then, it's really beginning to measure, whatever we set forth as the objectives, and really understanding, how do we know we're successful? Oh yeah, we better measure that. And you don't want too many things to measure, but it's like asking that very pertinent question: how do we know we're successful if we take this specific action? And
Right.
to me, that's what's important: is how do we tie those three: foggy top, fluid middle, and flexible bottom. It's the way I try to describe the structure of the organization, in terms of levels of leadership.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as you know, I've been in my experience through organizations that some executive leaders don't even know that Agile has been rolled out. Right? Talk
Yeah.
about the foggy top, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that needs to be transparent to the whole organization, and people don't, especially in the work that we're doing at Coach What Matters, is we're not letting anybody off the hook, right? If we want to partner and collaborate, leadership needs to be engaged. The teams love it because it's an empowerment movement. Agility is about empowering those teams to pursue the greatest priority work that they have in front of them. And through the flexibility and inspect and adapt, they can bring out their best self at work. But, so they naturally love it. So a lot of it is homegrown, but that executive leadership team needs to have that same enthusiasm along the way.
Yeah, for sure. And, like earlier, I talked about organizational change management. I was coaching at an organization. What we did for OCM was we actually created kind of like a poster, and it was like we created like a Superman poster about the change that was coming. And we would take this big poster and and it's really a cardboard cutout, and we would move it around the organization with a message that's associated with that. It's part of being visible and present. And that's what happens a lot of times with agility, right? We do it in the teams and in our little scrum rooms, and no one else gets to see what's going on. Let's take it out to the rest of the organization and start telling stories, right? I mean, start having stories visible and present, like in making work visible. That's really an important aspect of the transformation journey as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's, as we're getting close, let's talk about building a future ready organization, right? We're talking about aligning agile with long-term growth. How do we ensure that agile practices are not just quick fixes, but really strategically aligned with the business long-term goals?
Yeah. This is probably the number one question that executive leadership needs to ask themselves as they adopt Agile for their organization. How will Agile influence long-term growth? They need to answer that individually as a business. How will the company measure it? What is the baseline today for the company? And take a picture of that. And how is it with Agile? And take a picture of that. And how does that trend look across the board? This is critical to define, and something that shouldn't be outsourced to a consultant or anybody else. This is a C-suite exercise. Define that long-term growth and what it means for the organization, and be transparent about it. How will the company achieve that growth? And how will agility, be that booster that helps that growth, and fuel it through whatever cycle that the business is going through. So this is important, and that needs to be transparent and visible. You mentioned about that visibility, and to me, visibility brings about credibility. When an executive leader becomes visible, there's some sort of credibility that is instilled in the organization with that long-term growth and how we're going to achieve that. Everybody wants to win, and a leader telling them how they're going to win with practical measures along the way, it's an incredible sense of not only of bringing out your best self, but establishes credibility for the whole organization. And it's an empowering thing that happens in a culture. So to me, this is how the steps that you need to take to make sure that building that future and long-term growth and bringing agility as that method that will fuel that growth.
Yeah, because, the thing is that everyone, it's important for the organization to have a North Star, right? Where are we going? And having a leader being able to share what that North Star journey is, because the North Star is over there somewhere, but how are we going to get there? We're going to use agility as one practice to help us move forward in our journey. So that's really critical as well. Hey, just doing a check-in. Let's talk about, is there anything else that you would like to add as a final statement before we close?
No, I just want to thank you for the time in this, and your audience, of course. Thank you, everybody. Reach out to us at coachwhatmatters.com. You know where to find us. We're on LinkedIn as well, and Instagram. So looking forward to continuing the conversation, but also love the partnership, with people like Dr. Dave and others. This community is about partnership and collaboration and sharing of ideas. So I love the work that you're doing, Dr. Dave, around that. So thank you so much for all that you do in this space.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. Hang in there for a second. Let me just close up. Hey, thank you for joining us for the Unleashing the Power of Your Business Origin Story, a journey to sustainable organizational performance. Is the episode that we're talking about. Caesar, just thank you for suggesting this topic to share with our community. Look, the Knowledge Share with Dr. Dave podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Audible, or wherever you get your podcast. Check out some of my latest books. My latest leadership book on generative leadership to thrive. and the incredible story about Ashanti Mwendo and on DrDaveDuca.com. On most of the books, also, all of my books are available on Amazon.com. You could find them as an audio, on Audible, Kindle, and print options. So, hey, thank you for listening. And remember, the journey to excellence is ongoing, and every step taken with an abundance mindset is a step towards thriving into resilience. So just don't forget that, and look forward to our next episode coming up. Stay tuned and stay locked in.
We all have something to share. No share with Dr. Dave.